Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And you can support the show either through signing up for the Patreon page and getting extra content there, or the merchandise store. And you can get shirts and a sling bag and an apron there if you would like, with different designs on there, and from friends of the show. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in doing these shows. Also, please check out the links for friends of the show, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, with her own channel, also the co-host of this show on weekends, as well as Michael Strange and Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear many amazing shows along with my own 24/7. And I believe that takes care of everything, so we can get to these true stories here and go from there. Thank you all for listening in and being here and listening in after the fact on all the places. So let me get to this next true story here. This one says, I am an active duty member currently living on a base across the country from my home state. My mother called with a strange story. She and others encountered the ice cream man in my hometown. The ice cream man claimed he saw me working at a clothing store in my hometown, despite me being far away and in the military. The ice cream man is familiar with me, having watched me grow up since age 7, and is mentally sound and reliable. He reportedly had a full conversation with me, during which I said I had left the military and returned home permanently. The ice cream man confirmed identifying details, such as my tattoos on my arms. This encounter spooked my family because I have not been home in a long time and live far away, making the sighting seemingly impossible. And that's where that one ends. That is a wild one. Believe it or not, that's not the first time I've heard of something similar. People being talked to as if they were in another location. That may be a case where it's the furthest away I've ever heard of anyone being from where the sighting took place, again, across the country. But I've heard of similar accounts, and it's not just a sighting, it's a conversation. That is really, because I can understand sightings being easy to maybe write off. You could think, well, everyone has someone that looks like them, supposedly, and there's just only so many hairstyles, there's only so many. It could be a mistake, in other words, if it was just someone seeing someone else. But this is a conversation, which means it was the same voice, the same appearance. And not only that, but working in a store. I really wish there was more details about, because I would have wanted to know, okay, send someone that knows the person back to that store. See if that other version of the person that wrote this account is still working there. I'm really curious about this. To me, it sounds almost like a couple of options, of course, not counting anything along the skeptical side of things, which it's always possible. But some weird kind of time slip to the point where maybe at some point in the future, the writer decides to do this, decides to move back home and start working in a local store, and somehow, some way, the ice cream truck driver uh, came across another period in time, but it looked enough like their own time, or vice versa, and so they had no idea that anything had happened, and ran across this other version, or this future version. I would think not too far in the future, otherwise the person would look different that they saw. But slipped into one time period and came back out again. The other possibility is, again, something that a lot of people don't care for, but something that has been suggested over the years, the idea of alternate or parallel universes, where, again, similar situation. The ice cream truck driver walked into a store, somehow slipped between universes in a way that we don't know how it works yet. And they did see the writer of this account, just another version of them, who had decided to leave, make a different career choice or whatever, and was working at that store. Those are the two possibilities as far as paranormal things go. I mean, there's a third that's darker, which is that there's someone impersonating the writer, whether it's a regular person, which would be, I would think it'd be somewhat difficult to get it too close to the same degree, or some other being, something not necessarily completely human, posing as this person. So all kinds of options there, but really wild account there of an experience that I would just really be curious to know more about, sort of the aftermath of that, and I'd be curious about that store and going back there to see if that person was still there. So really wild account there, and again, I've heard similar accounts, so I can't. I don't like to just automatically doubt any of these accounts, because what if it is a possible thing that happened, and how does it happen? And if we sort of write off all these things as it's just entirely not possible, then what are we missing in how reality works? What details or what mechanisms are we not thinking about because we're not even allowing for that possibility of that event to have happened? So, now that I've rambled on a bit, enough about that for a bit, let's get to the next one here. This one says, I have lived in multiple homes north of Houston, Texas. In each home, I have occasionally heard the sound of a flute outside my window. The flute sound is always the same 3 notes, repeated continuously. The sound does not come from inside the house, and neighbors do not hear it. When I looked outside, there was never anything visible causing the sound. I didn't hear other sounds along with the flute. Can anyone explain this? And that's where that one ends. I've heard of accounts of flute, people hearing flute sounds before, here and there. Usually, though, in previous accounts I've read and heard about, it's a one-time deal. So this is odd in that it's happening in multiple locations to the same person. So I don't know what to make of that, other than some entity, whether it's a ghost or otherwise, spirit or otherwise, trying to get their attention for some reason. And again, it's hard to know just based on that one thing happening. But yeah, it doesn't sound like it's tied to any one location. It's connected to the person. And I've heard of accounts like that where activity follows. Not always the sound of a flute like that, but it's the idea of people are. I don't like to use this word a lot, but people are haunted. People have draw in um, other beings, other energies around themselves. It doesn't have anything to do, or not entirely anything to do, with the locations that they're in. So, so yeah, that's an odd one though. The flute. I would really be curious what those three notes would mean if there's some kind of meaning. It's hard to know with just three notes though. But but yeah, I thought that was a neat one there. Um, they don't say they're frightened by it, so hopefully it's nothing that gives off any negative feelings. I would guess they would mention it if it did give off any negative feelings. So I'd hope so. Hopefully everything's okay there. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, my mother and uncle reportedly lived in a haunted house during their youth, where my uncle was tormented by the sensation of eyes watching him from the darkness in his bedroom. When I was in my late teens, I stayed with my grandfather, who lived alone and was in poor health, to help care for him. I typically slept on the couch and would walk or take the bus to college, with my grandfather often providing money for a weekly bus ticket. One night, while my grandfather was away and I was alone in the house, I woke up to noises coming from above me. The sounds resembled a lively party: laughter, joking, footsteps, furniture being moved, and muffled conversations, as if about 100 people were having a ball above me. The noises persisted for approximately 15 minutes, growing louder as if more people were joining the gathering. Feeling unsettled and unable to sleep, words are hard, I got dressed and left the house, walking 10 minutes to my uncle's home, where I arrived at dawn and was welcomed in. The problem is, my grandfather's home was a bungalow. There was no upstairs where the noises could have come from. That is a wild one there. And again, that having that experience, I can't imagine that. That had to have been, because if it was just bumps or bangs or sounding like footsteps, like I've heard squirrels, maybe even cats, who knows, uh, walk or run along the rooftop, the edge of the rooftop in my apartment building here. But there's no way to mistake the sounds of smaller animals as larger animals, along with sounds of conversation and a party and furniture moving. I'd be curious about the history of the location, if there was ever a two or more story building there where there was a party that maybe happened regularly. If that could be the explanation for that, although I guess it could still be residual, but it's weird that it didn't happen more often to where the writer and or their family weren't aware of it. But yeah, that's a wild one there. I just really don't know how to write that off, really, because again, there's not just the sounds of footsteps. There's other things as well there, and so that's a neat one there. And again, if you listen to enough sort of ghost story shows, and not so much the I mean, I guess you'd probably hear that on some of the reality shows too, but you'll hear accounts of that, people being on one floor of a building, and then hearing on the next floor of a party, and then finding out there's no one there. Or in some cases, again, this is not the first time I've heard of people hearing sounds of a party above them when there is no rooms. There are no rooms above them in a building. So, so yeah, it just makes me wonder about the history of the place, or is it? I mean, this is sort of a neat idea for me, but I imagine terrifying for people. But are there gatherings of other beings, whether it's spirits or others, that happen in places where they think, oh, no one's home, so we're just going to go and and basically stay for a while at this one location, and then they accidentally end up frightening someone because they didn't think anyone was home, but there is. And or in some cases, I guess they could just they don't care. But in other words, are there gatherings of, let's say, spirits or ghosts or consciousness where somehow they're having this gathering and the person is able to hear or pick up on the energy of that, and it comes across in some way as sounds? I don't know, but that's a neat one there. So let's see about this next one here. Okay. This one says, I have lived since birth. I saw the word birth and I went for the B. I have lived since birth in a house over 100 years old, which was bombed during the Spanish Civil War and has been the site of family births and deaths. The house is known for frequent paranormal events, including clocks ticking by themselves at night, unexplained footsteps and noises, children's laughter, and visual apparitions. As a child, I shared a small bedroom with a trundle bed with my younger brother near our parents' room, with a long, narrow hallway leading to the kitchen. The hallway and the adjacent room were especially frightening to me due to a swinging kitchen door with a glass pane that cast moving shadows. One night, when I was about 11, my brother couldn't sleep and asked our father to sleep with him. Our father lay on the lower bed while I was on the upper bed. During the night, I heard unfamiliar footsteps coming from the kitchen down the hallway, but assumed it was my brother. I then saw a tall woman with black curly hair and a white nightgown walk by toward my parents' room. She appeared taller than my mother, but I dismissed it as a trick of the darkness. The next day, at lunch, my mother asked why my father had slept had slept with the children. When he explained, my mother revealed she thought one of the children had come into her room during the night. I told her what I saw, and my brother and father said they had seen the same apparition and had each assumed it was my mother. But my mother, however, had only heard someone open her door and never saw anyone. Despite the experience, none of us felt fear. That time, anyway. And that's where that one ends. Sounds like it's already an active place. I do wonder about that when you have homes that stay in a family for just generations. How much activity that can cause, especially when, as the writer there says, well, first of all, the place was under attack during a major war, but also family members have lived there for generations before even the current experience has happened. And I wonder what kind of energy that can put in a place. Again, you have all this energy of people that know each other across time. I wouldn't be surprised if there's activity there, and if there continues to be activity there, possibly even long after the family moves away, if they ever do. So, and it's just making me think of all the experiences I've had in my the house that used to belong to my grandparents, and all the weird things that happened. Um, there's a handful of other things that happened to other people in the family, not just myself. It's funny to me now because in some ways, when I have experiences in places, I think it could be my own sensitivity to things, and maybe not anything else going on there. Like the house that used to belong to my aunt and uncle, where I had my first experience and so many other experiences there. They only happened to my cousin and I when I was there, but apparently he never had experiences there himself. It was always just when I was around. Of course, I had no idea at the time about any of the things that we talk about in these shows now. I had no idea any of it existed, uh, other than knowing that some weird things happened there. But yeah, so I wonder about that. Whereas my grandparents' house, so since we're down to a few minutes here, I'll just go over a couple of things here. And I've talked about them before, but just as examples. Because my grandparents' house, my grandma had a sighting before I ever did there. And it turns out it was the original owner of the house. And my grandma found this out one day when she went to visit the next door neighbors. And then the husband and wife that lived there, uh, his mother was the original owner of the house that my grandparents moved into. And my grandma had seen a woman standing in front of the stove in her kitchen wearing a blue dress with a white apron. And then after that, eventually she went over to visit neighbors one day, and as she was in the house and the neighbor wife had stepped away for a minute, she saw a picture, and it was the same woman she had seen. And the neighbor wife came back and explained, oh, that's my husband's mother. She was the original owner of the house that you moved into. And my grandma didn't want to freak anyone out and didn't know what to think, so she didn't say anything. But years later, when my cousin and I were there for visiting for, I forget if it was a family gathering or not, but a lot of my family, we would just go there and visit, even if it was just one or two of us would go and visit for a part of a day or overnight or whatever. And we happened to be taking this little hallway that was went behind the living room and dining room, and it connected the stairway leading up to the second floor and the bathroom and a bedroom. When we were going past the stairway leading up to the second floor, we went by, and we actually had to step back to look again because we both saw a see-through image of a woman in a blue dress with a white apron, and she was smiling at us. And we didn't feel anything weird from it, from her. Not anything nearly like we felt from the first encounter we had at my cousin's house. And so we just looked at each other and confirmed that we both saw it, and then moved on. And we saw it a few times after that, here and there over the years, less so as we got older. But and there's so many other accounts that I've shared in the shows before. But so yeah, I wonder about the generational aspect of activity in places. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.